the children of silence. The wind carried the smell of snow. It whispered through the birch trees and rattled the iron gates of St. Aurelia's orphanage. An old stone building crouched on the edge of a frozen village in Eastern Europe. The windows were clouded by frost. The walls cracked like the skin of an old hand, but the place still breathed. Somewhere inside, faint laughter echoed. When Alina Markov arrived, dusk was already descending, that fragile hour when light hesitates before surrendering to night. She pulled her coat tighter, boots crunching against gravel, and paused before the gate. Her instructions had been brief: caretaker, overnight watch, children asleep by 8, keep them safe. No mention of why the position had been vacant for 6 months. "You'll find the children obedient," she said without greeting. "And whatever you do, Miss Markov, do not go into the basement." The orphanage smelled of old wood, chalk, and damp linen. A clock ticked faintly in the hallway. The children, 11 of them, sat at long tables finishing their soup. Pale faces lifted briefly toward Alina before lowering again, eyes wide and watchful. They ate in perfect silence. "Do they not speak?" she asked the matron later. "Oh, they do," the older woman replied, "but not after sunset. You'll understand soon enough." When the last spoon clinked against a bowl, the matron clapped once. The children stood, filed upstairs, and vanished into their dormitory without a sound. Alina walked the hallways with her lantern, its golden glow trembling across faded murals and portraits. Even the wind seemed afraid to howl. Somewhere below, the old pipes groaned like distant voices. She stopped at the basement door. A faint scratching sound came from beyond the wood, rhythmic, deliberate. It might have been rats. She stepped back. When she entered the breakfast room, the children were already seated, silent again, eyes fixed on their porridge bowls. Only one little girl looked up. Her name, the matron told her, was Anya, perhaps 6 years old, small and bird-like, with white blonde hair and the saddest blue eyes Alina had ever seen. After breakfast, when sunlight filled the hall, Anya whispered, almost inaudibly, "Miss Markov, it's better when you don't listen." Alina frowned. "When I don't listen to what?" But the child only lowered her eyes and began humming under her breath, a lullaby so faint it seemed to come from somewhere else. That night, Alina couldn't sleep. The wind had died entirely. She lay awake, listening to the building breeze. The silence was alive, trembling, stretching. Then she heard it. Soft footsteps in the hallway, far too light to belong to the matron. She rose, clutching her lantern. When she reached the corridor, she saw Anya standing by the stairwell, her nightgown fluttering faintly, though no draught touched it. The girl's eyes were wide, unfocused. "Anya," Alina whispered. The child raised a finger to her lips, then pointed toward the basement door. Something was moving behind it. The scratching was louder now, desperate, wet, like nails clawing at stone. A faint whisper threaded through it, low and guttural, words too distorted to understand. Alina knelt beside the girl. "What's down there?" Anya's voice was barely a breath. "It used to be one of us." And then, as if in answer, something thudded from the other side, a single heavy strike that shook the door on its hinges. Anya didn't scream. The next morning, Alina demanded answers from the matron. "Tonight, if you can, a covenant." The matron looked toward the window, where snow had begun to fall in slow, perfect flakes. During the war, there was famine, disease. The villagers made a pact. They buried their sick in the basement, prayed for deliverance, and something answered. It promised to spare their children if they fed it only sound. So the children learned not to speak after dark. Alina stared. "That's madness." The matron's eyes flicked toward the floor. "Madness keeps them alive." That night, the storm came. Wind howled through the eaves, shaking shutters and moaning down the chimney. The candles flickered and went out one by one, leaving only the red glow of the lantern by Elena's bed. It came from the walls, soft, pleading voices overlapping in a dozen tones. Then, over them, a deeper sound, a groan, long and hungry, rising from the floorboards. The children were awake. She could hear their beds creaking above her, but not one of them spoke. Not one cried. They were holding their breath. Alina ran to the hall, heart pounding. The door buckled outward once, twice, each time followed by a low, shuddering growl. Then the lock snapped. The door swung open, and a smell like wet earth and iron filled the air. A shape emerged, human once, perhaps, but warped and thin, skin stretched too tight over bones. Its eyes glowed faintly, colorless. Its mouth moved soundlessly, as if speaking in the language of breath. It turned toward her, tilting its head, and in that instant she understood it was listening. To her heartbeat, she screamed. The sound ripped through the hall, shattering the covenant. The creature's mouth opened in something like joy, like hunger fulfilled. It lunged. The children began to cry upstairs, small, muffled sobs that quickly fell silent again, one by one. When the matron came down at dawn, the hallway was quiet. The basement door hung open, and the floor was wet with something dark. Elena's lantern still burned faintly, guttering in the cold air. By evening, the children were gathered at the table once more. Their faces were calm, their mouths shut. When the matron asked if they were all right, Anya smiled, a small, knowing smile that didn't belong to her. And from somewhere beneath the floorboards came the faint sound of breathing, steady and content. They had fed it again, and silence once more was kept.